topic in our society today. Gender roles are a set of social norms that dictate what type of behavior is generally accepted, appropriate, and desirable for a person based on their actual or perceived gender. Nothing is wrong with liking stereotypical things as long as it's your choice. But parents tend to push things on their children. They force children into roles that they otherwise might not assume. And they dictate what is and is not okay for a boy and girl to like based on what society thinks. Most people have grown up with Disney, and men and women stereotypical roles have changed over time and in Disney movies. And today we're going to discuss the Disney princesses and how the gender roles have changed. And Adam is going to tell you a little bit about Snow White.
So, today it's going to be Snow White. Don't she look beautiful? Well, women back then were beautiful, and they were weak, physically, emotionally, and this movie was recorded in 1812, and the author of this video is the Grimm's brothers Grimm. And so, I believe that is the brothers Grimm, who is the author of this video, who created it. And this video was created in Germany. So, I hope you guys been to Germany or not, I don't know, but that's where this video was filmed. And it was out 1938 on video and DVD. And so they were also helpless, and the men had to do all the work while the women stayed home and cleaned, did laundry. So they were stay-home wives, women, whatever. And so, and they also, the men were also providing for the women too. And so, now, so here they are sweeping the floor and cleaning the house because while the men were at work, and it was just a women thing that they like to do back then. And so the men back then had to rescue the women if they needed help. Like here, Snow White ate the apple and was put into a deep sleep. And so the prince came and rescued the woman and gave her a sweet kiss. And the movie was happily ever after. So, Cinderella, so.
Okay, so Cinderella. It was made in 1912. The authors wrote it. It was Charles Perrault. He was, back then, he wrote it around the same time as the Brothers Grimm, because they also did a version of it, but the movie that the Disney people did was off of Charles Perrault's version, which was a lot less darker, a lot more happy fairy tale type of thing. In the movie of Cinderella in 1950 that they made, she was basically completely like downgraded in her original status as a daughter of a noble once her father died, and then her stepmother and her 3 wives took, and stepmother and her 2 evil sisters took over. So in the end, she's here cleaning the floors, cleaning the floorboards, doing all the chores of the house as a servant rather than as a person who actually lived in the house like she used to. And in the end, she's dependent upon a prince to come and save her. And that's the ideal of the original story, where a woman needed a man to raise her up from her social status, and this is like a fairy tale story dream that they made. They in fact have one going all the way back to 7 BC about it. Cinderella story that dates back to 7 BC. And nothing short of pretty much divine intervention or magic, aside from Prince, is going to save her from her fate, is basically what the movie said, which kind of sucked for her. And that's the way Cinderella was back then. Sorry to say. So yeah, we're going to go to Adam with Sleeping Beauty.
So, here we are with Sleeping Beauty. This video was created in 1959, and I've seen it so many times, I've watched it so many times, and it's just an amazing movie. And so, here's Sleeping Beauty. I think that's why they created the movie title, because she's sleeping and she's beauty. And so, this is Charles Perrault, who is the creator of this video. And he's done a lot of things to get this movie put together. And so, and this video was created in France, where they made the film, put everything together. So, it was put out onto a video in 1959 where kids could actually watch the videos of Sleeping Beauty and see the roles of the video. And that is I don't know who that is, but women in this video are over emotional and they always are in tears. So, The Little Mermaid.
Growing up, The Little Mermaid was one of my favorite movies. It was written by Hans Christian Andersen, the original story was, in 1837, and it's set in Denmark, and the movie was released in 1989. There are a lot of gender stereotypes in this movie, including Ariel being unbearably skinny, and the poor, unfortunate souls, while they were sad and depressed, the woman was portly and the man was very scrawny. And whenever she changed them around, he became very manly, and she was skinny and beautiful. This movie told you, basically, that you don't need your voice. Your place as a woman is your body and your body language. And women needed a man's permission for everything, including to marry your spouse. At the end of the movie, he gives her legs. If she had been given legs, she wouldn't have been able to marry Prince Eric. And she also changed in this movie, Prince Eric. There was nothing about him changing to come under the sea with her. It was all about her changing herself to be with him. This is a more progressive movie, but she still was not as independent as I would have liked to see in 1989. Levy's going to tell you a little bit about Beauty and the Beast.
Okay, so for my first movie I did Beauty and the Beast, and I feel like this is kind of where Disney started to notice that the female roles weren't as strong as they should be in society. So it was made by Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont in 1756. She was a French author, and the two main characters are obviously Belle and the Beast, and back then in like 17th century France, women were pretty much doing nothing but housework and chores. They weren't expected to get a proper education or hold any big titles or positions. And so what this movie did was it showed Belle, she loved books, she was always reading, she was always out about town, going about other daily things that most women did not do, and the town actually frowned upon it a lot. And another thing was that she said no to marrying Gaston, which was like a big thing not to do because he was like the best man in town, he was gonna like protect her and all that, but she didn't want any of that. And so it shows that she was just very outspoken and that she went against a lot of societal norms. And I feel like, again, this is when Disney started to realize that, and they started to really take notice because this movie was a huge success, and this is kind of when the roles all started to change. And so now I'm just gonna go back to Brittany or Aladdin.
Aladdin was written by Antoine Gallant in 1709, and it's based in the Middle East. And the movie was released in 1992. The female role was mostly opinionated and unspoken, but her worth was still tied with her marriageability and her political power. She was eventually given the choice to choose her mate, but that took a lot of fighting on her part. So in this, women were objectified, but in the end, they were able to make their own decisions. And for the men, it basically told them that they might need to cheat, but with hard work, they can achieve their goals. And Pocahontas was released in 1995, and it was obviously set in America. We consider this more of an original story because it is nothing like what actually happened. The woman is strong and free-willed, and she refuses to be told what to do. She won't marry the suitor that her father has picked out for her. And she picks her suitor, and she bonds the settlements by her choice. This aligned with 90s feminist progression by empowering Pocahontas to choose her own path. That's one reason that I really like this movie. Let us go tell you a little bit about Mulan.
Okay. So Mulan, this is pretty much one of my favorite Disney movies. The original author is actually anonymous. It's kind of just like it's based off a true story back in ancient China around the 6th century, but it's pretty much turned into a legend. No one really knows who told it first. But in the 11th or 12th century, it was compiled into a bunch of other works by Gao Maquin. And her character in ancient China, women weren't oppressed. They were still able to hold actually high positions, and the older women in the families actually held a very high position because they were very spiritual and they knew the ancestry and they had a lot of wisdom. And actually a lot of the kings and emperors and stuff, they went to women to seek advice and how to rule their land and the people and stuff. So in this movie, again, Mulan kind of goes with that. She's very, I guess, disobedient, you can say, and outspoken. She goes to join the army in her father's place. She actually goes to fight the Huns and stuff. And it's just showing that what it was like back then, pretty much. I mean, this movie doesn't really, it's not very fictional, I guess. It's pretty in line. And so, yeah, this is her training to be a geisha, and she just kind of realized that wasn't really for her. She didn't really fit well in that role. And yeah, so that's her joining the army, being outspoken, making her own life choices, which they didn't like because women weren't allowed to be in the army, but in the end they kind of agreed with it and let her do it. So the next movie will be Princess and the Frog, and Nick will tell you about that.
Okay, so Princess and the Frog. This is actually really interesting what happened here because this movie was done in like 2003. It's a lot different from the original version that happened in 1812 from the Brothers Grimm. Back then, there's the Brothers Grimm, by the way, in case you didn't know. Back then, the princess was white. She was snooty, she was rich, she didn't do much, and she was disgusted by the Frog Prince when he first came to her. But In the new movie that came out recently to show how much gender roles have changed over the years in Disney, she's black, she works hard, her goal is to open a restaurant, and she isn't a princess, but it's more of a princess of the heart type thing, where she's worthy of being a princess. And in the new movie, the prince comes and works at the restaurant once it's happily ever after. And in the old movie, she goes off to his kingdom and rides into the sunset with him rather than just him marrying her family. It's a complete and utter turnaround in this movie to show the different gender roles that switched over. And next, we'll be talking about Tangled Flip.
Okay, so the original tale of Rapunzel, which is what it's based off of, was written by Charlotte Rose de la Force in 1698, French author again, and then it was publicized by the Brothers Grimm in 1812. So I mean, the story was known before, but the Brothers Grimm brought it over to Germany and more parts of Europe, and they were able to make it widely known. So again, 17th century French women, like Beauty and the Beast, they were expected to stay inside, do the housework, take care of the children. So the story of Rapunzel, she's stuck in a tower, and she's not allowed to leave. She's just stuck in it for her whole life, so that kind of reflects society. I mean, because women were stuck in the house all the time, kind of like how Rapunzel was in the tower. And in the original story of Rapunzel, actually, she was dependent on the prince to come rescue her. But in the new movie of Tangled, she kind of takes more charge, and she's shown, actually the prince is shown as kind of like just comedic relief more, and she's more of the main character and more of the go-getter. And so yeah, the next one will be Brave, and that will be Brit.
Brave was an original story released in 2012. It's one of my favorites. It basically showed a strong, independent, athletic woman that didn't need a suitor. She fought for her own heart. This was women being more independent and less centered on what other people think. But this movie is one of my favorites because it's not just about love, it's more familial love for her mother. And it's a lot deeper than what the other Disney princess movies have been about. It's one of my favorites. Nick's going to tell you a little bit about Frozen.
Okay, so Frozen. Yeah, this one, it doesn't really even involve any type of princely love in the original story. In the original story, it was made in 1844 by a guy named Hans Christian Andersen, which, funny thing about his thing is Hans, then there's Kristoff, and then there's Sven. Their names make up his name. It's really funny. But anyways, it's about two sisters and how one has ice powers and one doesn't. But in the original story, it was about two children. And instead, the Ice Queen was evil. And in the end, the original story was about children love and in the purity of children's hearts, rather than about a prince and a princess. And in the new one, it's a princess and it's two princesses, and it's about sisterly love still. And there's nothing really, they don't need the prince, they don't need no man type of thing. And so yeah, in the end, it's not just that fact, but also the fact that rather than have love and live on, Anna chose to sacrifice herself for her sister as an ultimate solidification of that new standpoint. So yeah. Lovey's gonna talk about it.
Okay, so to wrap it all up, Disney, they've started to realize that they need to start changing these gender role type things, and that they can be really harming to a children's life growing up, being told what to do and how to do it. So what they've started doing, obviously we've seen in the past few movies, is they've really been empowering the women's role, but at the same time they've kind of given men more of the back seat, and there's kind of comedic relief, they're just there for laughs and stuff. So I think eventually in the next few years, I love what Disney's doing with it, but I think pretty soon they're going to start to find a middle ground to where they can kind of show how both characters, you can live up to be either one of them and still have a really successful life. Those are gender roles in Disney films.